The Lord be with you.
and with the Spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
As Jesus was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a sizable crowd, Bartimaeus, a blind man, the son of Timaeus, sat by the roadside begging. On hearing that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me." And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he kept calling out all the more, "Son of David, have pity on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take courage, get up. Jesus is calling you." He threw aside his cloak, sprang up, and came to Jesus. Jesus said to him in reply, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man replied to him, "Master, I want to see." Jesus told him, "Go your way. Your faith has saved you." Immediately he received his sight and followed him on the way. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. This morning's gospel reading is a story of a blind man, a blind beggar. Although he was blind, his hearing was very sensitive. The gospel reading says that he heard that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. Although he could not see Jesus passing by, he made contact with Jesus through his sense of hearing. His finely tuned hearing to the presence of Jesus led him to use another sense to make contact with Jesus, his sense of speech. He cried out, "Jesus, Son of David, have pity on me." Even when people around Jesus, including perhaps some of Jesus' disciples, told him to keep quiet, he shouted all the louder, "Son of David, have pity on me." Even though he could not see Jesus, he was determined to make contact with him through his gift of speech, through his urgent prayer from his heart. His prayer was an act of faith on his part. He recognized Jesus as Son of David, which was on one of the titles of the Messiah, and trusted that Jesus could heal his blindness. His making contact through his hearing and his speaking revealed that he had an inner sight. Even though he was blind, he saw Jesus with the eyes of faith. Even when he was rebuked by the crowd for confessing his faith out loud, he refused to silence. He had to courage to keep professing his faith, despite the hostility and scorn it brought upon him. This man's courage, faith, and the quality of hearing and speaking and saying it gives rise to have something to teach us. When professing our faith publicly, it can invite scorn. This man's faith literally brought Jesus to a standstill. in spite of the fact that at this point at his ministry he was hurrying from Jericho to Jerusalem. The gospel reading says simply Jesus stopped. Jesus' response to the heartfelt prayers of this man was in complete contrast to that of the people around him. Rather than telling him to keep quiet, Jesus told those around him to call him over. Jesus is portrayed as a champion of those not considered worthy enough to come near to God. Again, we witness the extraordinary responsiveness of his man to Jesus' presence, to the call of Jesus. When he heard that Jesus was calling him, he first of all threw off his cloak. His cloak, no doubt, served many purposes. He sheltered him from the weather. It was his bed. It was, in a sense, his home. Yet he abandoned it, and having done so, he jumped up and went unerringly to Jesus in his blindness. Nothing was going to hold him back from connecting with Jesus, not even his precious cloak. He speaks to all of us of our own need to free ourselves to the binds that stifle our faith and keep us from approaching the Lord. The question that Jesus asked him when they came face to face was not the kind of dismissive question that comes from annoyance at being interrupted. What do you want? Rather, it was a very personal question. What do you want me to do for you? It is the question that we can all hear and address to each of us personally, and how we answer that question can reveal a great deal about who we are and what we value. In the passage in Mark's Gospel, which immediately preceded this one, Jesus asked the same question of two of his own disciples, James and John. What do you want me to do for you? Their answer revealed a self-centered ambition. Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory. The blind man's answer to Jesus' question revealed a very different heart. Aware of his blindness, aware of his disability, he asked simply, Master, I want to see. In answering his prayer, Jesus addressed him as a man in faith. Your faith has saved you. He was already seeing Jesus with the eyes of faith before he received back his physical sight. Once he received back his physical sight, we are told that he followed Jesus along the road. He immediately used his newly restored sight to walk after Jesus as a disciple up to the city of Jerusalem, where Jesus would be crucified. His faith had shaped his hearing and his speaking, and now it's shaped by the path he would take. Like this blind man, we are blind beggars who need to keep on crying out to the Lord who passes by so that we can see him more clearly and follow him more nearly.